Well, we survived the almost tornado apocalypse this morning, and not to make fun of it, I know there were some tornadoes across the country today. Charlotte, some really severe thunderstorms this morning actually woke us up. It was so bad, and I sent you a picture about a mile from us, a huge tree over Carmel Road, which is basically a 2-lane road in each direction here in Charlotte. So, but it's beautiful now. Great conditions. I know it's a little bit different where you are, but a little rainy, I guess. You're probably getting that storm we had this morning. Eventually.
We are getting torrential rain. Winds are up to 60 miles an hour. Power outages expected throughout New England. It's not pleasant. We had a great day yesterday. Happy Easter to all our Life Without Sports viewers.
Right.
Happy Passover. Yeah. Mazel to you, Mike.
Yeah, you too. You
feel like I feel like I'm looking at you on the 7th hole at Augusta right now. I hear the birds chirping.
Yeah.
The azaleas are out.
Well, it's funny because I did play golf on Friday.
Oh yeah, well we have many viewers asking me to pursue that over/under bet.
Yeah.
Over/under number of balls.
Now you took the under, right?
I took the over.
Well, I was at about 6 lost balls after 7 holes. And once I got to 8, I stopped counting.
so I win?
You win.
I win.
The over is yours. I played so bad. But it was a typical round of golf for me, right? So my wife asked me afterwards when I was driving home. She said, how'd you play? I said, well, I had 7 great shots. And then I probably had another 95 that weren't so good.
Usually you're looking for like 30 around.
Yeah. No, I did. I had some. In fact, the final hole. The problem was I was as you kind of forecasted. I was too much OB. This was a little bit. Not that it's a tight course, but there was a lot of hazards.
You can't play. The one thing about golf is, we all know it's one of the hardest games to play, but it's especially hard when you don't play that often.
Yeah, you got to practice. You have to practice.
Yeah. It's like, I feel like, you got to get out there and practice. Yeah, no kidding. Thanks.
Yeah, who has time for that, though, right?
Well, now we do.
Yeah, well, now you do. That's true.
Except if you're not supposed to be out there, technically.
Right.
Although in Rhode Island, you know what they're doing in Rhode Island? They're cracking down. You can play on Rhode Island courses.
Right.
A couple guys from Massachusetts plays.
Well, the mistake they made was meeting up at the McDonald's.
Did you read about that story?
Yeah, I did read about that story.
Yeah, so the McDonald's flagged them.
Yeah. Yeah, somebody called, Good Samaritan called, and the sting was on. They were waiting for them when they got back.
Right? Exactly. It's like they could face jail time.
Yeah.
Which they won't, I'm sure, but it's still.
I mean, they'll pay a fine, but.
Yeah, is it worth it, guys, to sneak onto a course and get your social distancing on a golf course?
But that's really what's interesting about the times we live in, John. Is it's really state by state, in some cases county by county. In Mecklenburg County, where I am in Charlotte, golf is still fine, but you can still use public parks. You just can't congregate, so you can't. All the basketball courts have been kind of they've done. The one court I did see over the weekend, they had 2x4s screwed together on the rim, so you couldn't shoot a basketball. So they've done stuff like that all over the country. And
that was always my excuse. I always had a 2x4 in the rim.
See, mine was saran wrap. Somebody always put saran wrap on there when I would shoot.
Yeah, I would have been Steph Curry if it wasn't those. Yeah. It wasn't for the 2x4s. If it
wasn't for those pesky 2x4s.
Exactly.
Yeah. So we got a round of golf in. It wasn't very good. I mean, it was good. It was good. It was good to get out, but oh well.
Hey, you survived. No one got hurt.
Nobody got hurt. More importantly, I didn't get hurt.
Well, I have been moving on a golf course. You know that story. I did get hit in the head. It was a fateful. You might not have remembered it, but a fateful day. I believe 2002. I was at the Belmont Country Club in a charity tournament.
Wow.
And on the 17th hole, it's an elevated tee box going the other way, and my group was first time all day we had slow play, and we were just milling around our golf cart, waiting to tee off, and this idiot from the elevated tee box shanks one.
Oh, jeez.
And Did not say 4. Did not say a word. No, none of us heard it. I would have hit the deck if I had heard.
Jeez.
I saw the ball, when I tell you, Mike,
Yeah.
as it was hitting my head.
Oh.
And did not have time to react.
Yeah.
It's the side of the head
Yeah.
right here. And I am out. Not out totally, but
Yeah.
staggered.
Jeez.
And bleeding profusely.
Wow.
And people in my force described it as someone who was just like punch drunk almost.
Yeah.
And then thankfully I didn't get knocked out, but it was scary.
Yeah.
And they stopped playing. They call the ambulance, call 911. The ambulance comes out in the course. They take me to the hospital in Cambridge, near Harvard.
Jeez. Mount Auburn.
Mount Auburn.
Yeah.
Yes, because Belmont and Cambridge are close. So
Oh, yeah.
Driving.
Oh, no. Yeah, Mount Auburn. Mount Auburn, yeah, that's the closest hospital to Belmont.
Yeah, I remember driving to the hospital. A friend of mine, Todd Pinard, was in the car, was in the ambulance with me. And the thing, when I tell you the ambulance was bouncing around.
Oh,
like
jeez. Yeah, right.
And Todd's like, I'm going to get concussed as well. Because he's bouncing off the seat.
Can you get double concussed?
Yeah, you get double concussed. I'm sure I had a concussion. All I remember is sitting in the hospital and the doctor saying, all right, we're going to go take you in for a CAT scan.
Wow.
And, oh, yeah, it's a production, man. You get – the worst thing the doctor said to me was, I'll always remember this. She said that she said, I got to tell you, you're really lucky. I'm like, what do you mean? She's like, if that was 2 inches lower, I wouldn't be talking to you right now.
Holy cow. No, I never heard that story, Mead.
Yeah, that was Belmont Country Club, and they changed the course because of that incident.
Do they call it the Meterparel hole now?
It's the Meterparel rule. 18 years later, that's the course of Robert Kraft and many other luminaries.
Did you get any? You should have got like a free membership out of it or something.
Well, and thank you very much, those of you watching from Belmont Country Club. I'll still take it, but.
I think the statute of limitations on errant tee shots has expired.
I don't know if it's expired or not, but the next day, of course, I got staples in my head, and I just barely remember. God love them, they did a good job. But the next day, as you know, in sports radio, you always go to work.
Yeah.
You try to go to work.
Yeah.
So I was relatively new. It was my second year at EI. I'm like, screw it. If I'm not nauseous, I'm going.
Yeah.
So I ended up going to the show.
Yeah.
And that whole day we spent on this
talking
very
about
topic.
Yeah. Well,
and
yeah, that's crazy.
it was good for the show, Mike.
It was good for the show. Well, you did it for the show, right? You got knocked in the noggin for Dennis and Callahan.
Exactly.
And you didn't even get a membership out of the Belmont for that. That's a shame.
Nope.
That's a shame.
Nothing.
So I know you're doing, and I only bring this up because we're talking near-death experiences. So I think you're doing the 2007 Virginia Tech game at Virginia Tech.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up because I have something to add to that.
Yeah.
That game is going to be focused on tonight.
Yeah. Well, I hope you tell the story of one Paul Scharf and I.
Go ahead. I'm going to allow you to tell it.
All right. So Paul Scharf, a friend of John's, he's in pharmaceuticals. Hopefully he's out working diligently on the COVID-19 cure. But
hope so.
He would always kind of spot for John, sometimes do stats, things like that. And I was doing the studio updates for BC at the time, and they would allow me when BC came south, if it was someplace that I could drive, I could do the score updates live from the booth. So we picked the Virginia Tech game. It was easy, Thursday night. We left at like noon, and we figured we'd go grab lunch with John, and then we'd just kind of hang out, go to the stadium. And when I tell you it had not rained in that area in Virginia in about 6 weeks, it was kind of dry as a bone. Well, the day we go, it's like monsoon. It's like monsoon season hit the New River Valley, and I don't think we were quite to Fancy Gap yet, but we were in that area. And if anyone's been on 77 in that part of Virginia, Southern Virginia, it's very hilly. And so we're coming up this in Galax. We're coming up this incline.
I like how you said that.
Yeah, Galax. Yeah. It's not Galax. It's Galax.
No, exactly.
So we're driving up, and I'll never forget this as long as I live. That moment where you know something's about to happen, like split second before it happens, and literally, I looked over 5 minutes before. He was doing the speed limit, so it wasn't like he was speeding. And I just felt the car just shimmy just a little bit. And then the back of my head, my instinct was, oh, I think we're about to flip. And sure enough, we spun out. And we went into a ditch. We rolled over like 3 times. My computer crashed through the back window. It was a Pacifica. I forget, maybe it was like a 2005, 2006. That Pacifica saved our life. And Paul and I talked about this, and we still talk about this to this day. There was a moment while we were barrel rolling in the grass where we both were upside down and we looked at each other. We both remember that moment.
Oh my God!
And so we went from where we spun out. I think we went like 100 yards close to 100 yards up, and we stayed in the median, which is, I don't know how that happened, but because we spun, then we barrel rolled, and then we just kind of like. The only thing I have, you can't even see it. Let's see if I can put it up to the camera here. Yeah, you can't really tell. There's like a little scar like right here. Right there.
Yeah, barely.
That's the only thing I got. Paul was fine. We both walked away.
I remember getting the call from you.
Yeah. Hey, we're okay, but we might be a little late. But it was early enough though that Paul was able, and it was a company car, and the Enterprise was great. Like they came, they got us. Well, they had an ambulance come check us out. We were both fine. So then we got in the Enterprise. They switched out. We got us a car, and we made it to Virginia Tech. I think at like 5 o'clock for that game. And I did the updates. I did the updates from the booth.
And you did them very well.
Admirably, yeah.
I don't remember. I remember saying to you, "Are you sure you're all right?"
Yeah.
Because it sounded to me like a NASCAR collision.
Yeah.
You didn't collide with anybody, thankfully.
No. Well, that's what. I mean, I think, and that was the strange part about that. That at that point, it's like a 2-lane road, but I think that it's one of those. We just come off an entrance, so I think there was like a merge lane. And the fact that there was nobody around us that hit us. And so what I think happened was, I think it was so slick. There wasn't a lot of like rubber on the road to like grip. So I think we got a crosswind and hit a puddle. And I think we hydroplaned and got a crosswind at the same time. I think that's my scientific explanation. I think that's what happened.
You spun. Yeah,
and it spun out.
That's just the way you describe it. It makes me shudder.
Yeah.
It's so jarring.
Yeah, and I just remember screaming, "Danger in turn 3!"
Thankfully. Exactly. You're like Ricky Bobby
Yeah.
from Talladega.
Yeah.
It's such a jarring experience. Thankfully, Mikey and Paul made it to Blacksburg, and I will mention that tonight in a subtle way on the Zoom call with the BC football legends as they watch the ACC network rebroadcast BC Virginia Tech from 2007. I encourage anybody out there watching us now to check that out.
And what a great finish to that game. I mean,
you're encouraged to join us from 7 to 9 tonight. Scott Mutra and I will be hosting the Zoom call.
Yeah.
And it's going to be a lot of fun to talk to Jamie Silva and Jolan Dunbar.
Yeah, Jamie Silva, man, he was a beast in that game.
He was a beast. And that's the game, Mike, that we all thought if there was perfect weather conditions or even semi-perfect, it could have been a shootout.
Oh, yeah.
And BC probably scored 35 points.
Yeah, easy. Yeah.
Easy. But the night was not kind.
No.
It was,
and that was like a 12-7 game, wasn't it? I mean, it was like a low-scoring affair.
It was 14-10.
Oh, 14-10, yeah. It was,
It was, but it was a grinder. It was a grinder, Mike.
Grinder. It was a wicked grinder.
It was a wicked grinder. What was your favorite Arlington pizza haunt?
Oh, man. Well, Charlie's and Nicholas Pizza were 2 of my favorites. Oh, and I liked Arlington House of Pizza and Villa House of Pizza.
Okay, there you go.
So, but if I had to pick,
That's where you learn what a grinder was.
Well, actually, the grinders at Villa House are the best. If I had to pick one, I'd probably have to say Village House of Pizza.
Village House of Pizza.
Arlington Heights. They use some olive oil. Yeah, they put some olive oil on that thing.
We had some grease at Wellesley House of Pizza.
Oh yeah. But the steak and cheese at Villa House Pizza is to die for. It's the best.
Is it still there?
Yeah, still there. They moved it. It used to be like on the Lexington line, and then, I don't know, 10 or 15 years ago, they moved it right in Arlington Heights, right off Mass Ave and Park Ave.
I'm going to have to make that trip, man.
Right down the street.
Steak and cheese, I'll travel to India.
Yeah. But whatever you do, just don't pull a U-turn. there's a
Yes, for those of
there's
you
a there's
who
a
may have missed that story.
there's a wanted
Flags.
picture of John Meterparel in the Arlington Police Department for pulling U-turns in Arlington Center.
U-turns,
Yeah.
getting stopped by friends of Mike Pacheco.
Yeah. So my guess is you'd probably be coming in. You'd be coming down Route 2. You'd go 128 to Route 2. Get off at Park Ave, and when you get down to Park Ave and Mass Ave, you take a left, and Ville House is like 3 storefronts on the right.
Look at this. You're like a human ways.
Yeah. Now, if you want a sit-down meal, not a pizza, Jimmy's is pretty good too. That's over by Myrack
What is it?
Chevrolet. Yeah.
What's it called?
Jimmy's Steerhouse.
Jimmy's.
Yeah.
All right.
Used to be
Gotcha.
Jimmy's on the mall too.
It's funny. You grow up in Massachusetts, and we all grew up, in like Wellesley House of Pizza for me.
Yeah.
Everyone has that place.
Yeah. But Arlington.
It's also
The only thing I was gonna say about Arlington.
Quest, though.
The what though?
It's a never. Even though when you think,
Yeah.
like you think you found the best place, we're always
Yeah.
looking for more.
Yeah. Well, and this is what's funny about living in Arlington and now living in Charlotte. Charlotte, people don't realize how large geographically Charlotte is. I mean, Charlotte is probably, if Boston like extended out to like Everett and Arlington and maybe as south as like Milton, I mean, that's like almost the size of what Charlotte is, right? So we go to a lot of different places. Like going 7, 8 miles to go somewhere to eat, it's not that strange for us because it's in the way Charlotte's laid out. It's not. Yeah, it's just a different type of layout. But at Arlington, I mean, granted, we just grew up differently than we do now. But I mean, we ventured to like Somerville and Burlington, and that was about as far as we went.
Yeah. Oh yeah. You stay within your zone.
You stay within your zone. And my mom didn't drive. Like she had an accident when she was a kid, and she just never drove. So we did I would take the T a lot with her. I was the youngest, so we would go into Boston a lot. So that's how I got my street savvy. Harvard Square, Downtown Crossing, Filene's Basement.
Oh yeah. You're big at Filene's.
Yeah, big in Filene's.
It was my grandmother used to call it Filene's.
Filene's Basement. Yeah.
Filene's.
Jordan Marsh.
Yes.
Remember Jordan Marsh?
Try the blueberry.
The blueberry muffins at Jordan Marsh. That's right.
The blueberry muffins.
Yeah.
Dude.
Our childhood, man.
Clearly, that was the frustration for me when I moved to Charlotte. It's not, whatever, you live with it, but
yeah.
you're so used to having that neighborhood place
right.
in Boston. And Charlotte's not like that. Maybe it's getting a little bit more like that now, but there was no, it's like, hey, is there a good pizza place here?
Right.
Oh, yeah,
right.
I heard Domino's is good.
Or your local, like, deli convenience store. Like we had D'Agostino's in Arlington. Like, Arlington.
Dags.
They're Dags. There were, like, a couple in Arlington. I think there was one in Winchester.
Winchester's huge.
Yeah. But D'Agostino's, I mean, I don't know how many times I got sent down to, get half a pound of cheese and half a pound of ham and some milk and a bread and, If there was a quarter, if I had a quarter to spare, I might be allowed to get a Snickers bar,
or a bag of Swedish fish.
Yeah. Oof.
Yeah. It's the neighborhood. Charlotte doesn't really have that much.
I would say Charlotte is very much a contemporary, modern American city, even though it traces its roots back to before the Revolutionary War. But it was a small kind of trading town. Became big in textiles, but Charlotte's growth has been in the last, as you know this better than anybody, John. I mean, Charlotte's growth has been in the last 25 years. So it's, so a lot of the neighborhoods are a lot of cul-de-sac neighborhoods, a lot of, like one entrance. You might have 100 homes, but there's like 1 or 2 ways in. It's not like where we grew up, where everything was, more of a kind of a grid pattern, or at least, there was some semblance to structure, right? Here,
right.
It takes me almost 3/4 of a mile to get to that Carmel Road that I was telling you about, maybe half a mile. The closest supermarket's a mile away. I mean, you can walk it, but for me, the biggest culture shock was not moving from Boston to New York, but was from moving from Boston/New York to Charlotte. Because, like I said, in Arlington, I could walk down to Arlington Heights and go to 3 or 4 different places to eat. There was Baelish 5 and Dime, which is my buddy Porky O'Rourke is opening up a restaurant there. Porky, yeah. Jimmy O'Rourke. He's got I think it's the Public House in Winchester, and now he's trying to open up something in Arlington. But Baelish the 5 and Dime. I mean, that place had everything. I mean, talk about the Swedish fish. It was like A little bit like the Rockport General Store. Like they had just an aisle of like nickel.
One of our favorites.
Nickel and remember like nickel penny candies and stuff like that.
Love
The
it.
little bite size. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you can get that. You had Sports Etc. So that's where all the kids got their hockey gear. You could get all sorts of stuff there. D'Agostino's. So it was the one thing that Arlington is known for. At least it was when I was a kid. Pizza places and banks. There was like a pizza place and a bank like within every 100 yards.
And Brigham's.
And Brigham's, yeah, there were two. Actually, no, there were three Brigham's at one point. I think in Arlington.
And Mikey was a short order cook at one of them.
Yeah,
so.
yeah. The main company store, which was attached to the factory.
Oh, I miss Brigham's.
I miss Brigham's too. We had
that was a great place.
We had the store bought ice cream yesterday, the Harris Teeter brand, and it just wasn't the same as Brigham's vanilla.
It's not the same.
Not the same.
It's not. I mean, Harris Teeter is the Charlotte version.
It's Stop and Shop or Stars Market
Stop and Shop,
yeah.
Roach Brothers.
Yeah.
That type of.
Yeah.
And I moved down there. I'm like, what the hell is Harris Teeter? I remember saying.
Yeah.
It sounded like an offensive lineman for the Panthers or something.
What's the chain that they had in Maine? Hannaford's. Yeah, there was a Hannaford's when we first moved here. There was a Hannaford's right around the corner from us.
Park Road?
Up on Park Road. Yeah, that place was great. Then I think someone bought them out, or there was some sort of supermarket swap, and their foray into Charlotte went away, and they I think there's a Food Lion there now.
Yeah, which if you watch 2020 Food Lions,
yeah.
That's the issue.
Well, that was 25 years ago. I think they've cleaned it up, Meat.
I think they have. It was a lot. That was quite an expose though they had going on Food Lion.
Yeah. Oh, one thing I did want to mention, and I didn't talk about this in our pre-show meeting. This was pretty cool. I don't know if you saw this. So John Krasinski's doing that some good news thing. So
Very
he had
great concept.
Yeah. So he had I guess 4 or 5 healthcare workers from Beth Israel, the COVID unit.
He did.
And he did a Zoom with Big Papi, and they went to Fenway Park. So that was pretty cool.
It was cool.
The duck tour.
I just read about it today in the Globe, and I have to watch it. I haven't watched it yet, but Krasinski said to AT&T called him and said, "Hey, can we do anything?" And he's like, "Hey, how about free cell service for a month for all the for the healthcare workers?"
Wow.
And they're like, "How about 3 months?"
Wow.
So they're paying the bills of everybody. I think every doctor, nurse in Boston.
Yeah.
Is
you know what?
months.
Yeah. It's in crises, right? The character of our country is revealed in a lot of ways, good and bad. In World War II, obviously it was the GI, right? The sailor, the GI, Rosie the Riveter, the factory workers. In this pandemic, the doctors and nurses can't get enough thanks and praise because they literally are putting themselves in harm's way.
I don't know how you do it. I really don't. I guess it's just how are you a doctor, how are you a nurse anyway. It's the way you're wired.
Right.
But putting yourself in that position every day. Imagine getting up, and it's hard enough for us getting up out of bed on a Monday.
Yeah.
We're in the pandemic, and we have nothing to do, and we're all like, "What the hell are we going to do today?"
Right.
And then they go to the hospital, and they're like, in a, as they call it, a war zone.
Yeah.
So, it's
the self-sacrifice. And it's interesting because economically, I don't know how you fix this, right? But those people need to get paid more. I know.
Well, they're making a lot of money.
No, I know, but
not nurses.
No.
Doctors making.
No, but the nurses and the orderlies, the people that are the real frontline work. Not that the doctors aren't frontline workers, but you've had kids. The doctors were great for the birth of my son, but it was the nurses that, my poor wife was in labor for a long time, but we were there from I think we got there at 9 o'clock in the morning, and she had the baby at 10:30 at night, and we probably spent maybe, if you condensed it all down, maybe an hour and 10 minutes with the doctor. The rest of the time it was all the nurses.
Yeah, that's a great point. It's it's the people surrounding the auxiliary help that you need that make it all go.
Yeah.
They definitely deserve money. But I think Krasinski's hit on a good concept. I think you're right. The fabric and the tone of a culture is defined by how they work in tragedy. And, just especially in Boston, we're accustomed to that from the marathon 7 years ago.
Yeah.
David Ortiz's famous quote, it's...
yeah, that's our bleeping city.
That's been
yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
Those lightning rod moments where everybody kind of steps to the forefront.
Yeah. But I think that kind of stems also just from like the heritage of the city and, tracing back to the Revolutionary War. But, every couple of years you go through something, maybe not it's certainly not as severe, but certainly not less as important as, going through some of the blizzards and the hurricanes. Every couple of years there's something that keeps testing that area, I think, I mean, you can go back to every decade, and there's something that rallies everybody to a common purpose, and then life gets back to normal, and then X amount of years later, something else happens.
This one is really testing.
Well, this is not. I mean, this is the difference between this is this is something that's affecting the whole world. I mean, this isn't just this isn't like a 9/11 or the Boston Marathon. I mean, this is Wuhan, China. This is Milan, Italy. This is London, England. It's everywhere.
It's the invisible enemy.
Yeah, habitual enemy. That's correct. Yeah.
So that's really hard to grasp.
Yeah.
I think Trump says he wants to reopen the country by May 1st. And from an economic standpoint, I say, are you kidding me? Like, how do you even think about doing that? How do you think about everything involved there? How do you think about all the layers? How do you think about the fact that there's no vaccine? How do you think about you're affecting so many possible lives, potential lives? It doesn't make any sense to me. I'd love it. You and I would love if sports would open up again soon. We were talking about it before the show about how you like the Cactus League versus the Grapefruit League concept for the World Series.
Yeah, I think it's interesting.
Major League Baseball could split it up and everybody's in Florida and everybody's in Arizona, and then they come together in October.
Yeah.
But I love it, but I can't see that happening right now.
No. Well, and here's the thing, and again, I am by no means an expert. I mean, I did go to Merrimack College, but it seems to me until you can get a quick, reliable testing on a large scale, and not just testing to see if you have it, but they're even talking about testing like for the antibody. I mean, there's a lot of things that have to come together, I think, before we can get back to life as normal. Because what if, I mean, the one thing that really concerns me about all this is you look at a guy like Dr. Fauci, all right, and there are all these people now that are coming out against him, and I think more so it's because every time there's a press conference, he kind of tells you the truth about what's going on, and not that everything's going to be great in 3 weeks, And so, to me, and maybe this is something that's been building for years. I feel like it's been the last 4 to 5 years, but there's this like war on experience. It's like this guy has spent his entire life, his body of work. He's noted, he's renowned, he's the top of his field. And you have these people that think that they know better than a guy that has dedicated his life work to this. Like, it stuns me. Now, I'm not saying, that's not to say you can't second guess. Absolutely. In fact, I think for anybody that follows any kind of science, everything should be questioned. And that's, you and I have talked about this before. I mean, I think even if you are the biggest, most ardent supporter of a politician, you should still be able to second guess and critique them. Otherwise, it's just worship,
But now we have Trump saying he wants to fire Fauci.
Yeah.
Because
Fauci's not telling the world how great Trump is.
Nor should he. It's not his job.
No.
He has to tell you the truth scientifically about where we're headed.
But I think the big danger, too, and you and I have talked about bias, right, is increasingly I see signs of this. The first thing I saw I was working in minor league baseball a long time ago, one of my first jobs. And a story came out about the team. And it was accurate. It didn't make the team look good, but the facts were accurate. And the guy running the team at the time, was like trying to put all the spin on it, and it's like, I understand that. Like you want to try and put your case out there too, but he was trying to insinuate that like this guy had an agenda. No, sometimes people are reacting to stories that they don't like by blaming the accuracy of the story when you just don't like what the story is telling you.
Right.
But I have a lot of
it doesn't fit into your narrative.
No, and now like the genie's out of the bottle, right? Because now it's like every little news story now it's that's fake. All you have to do is say fake news, and immediately you go, well, maybe it is fake news, even if it's 100% accurate. It's like this suspicion of what the media does. Now, look, the media's not perfect. I mean, we've discussed this. I mean, it's not perfect, and there are problems. But I think it's more dangerous if you just listen to one source and you just take the company line and you think everything's hunky-dory.
And our leadership should be, here's a word that they've forgotten in this entire process, in this entire tragedy. Empathy. There's no empathy. Yeah. Zero. Yeah. There's none. It doesn't exist right now. Our president's not empathetic. He doesn't have an empathetic bone in his body.
But there are also people...
Republican, Democrat, Independent, I don't care what you are, you would be hard-pressed to tell me that this guy is empathetic at all.
No. Well, as it pertains to everybody else, as it pertains to himself, he's very empathetic. He has self-empathy.
He's the classic definition of a narcissist.
But the other thing, I love looking at this not from a policy standpoint, but I love looking at our leaders. And, one thing that in our careers we've been trained to do, kind of a byproduct, is you study leadership, right? Because coaches, captains, leaders on the team, they all display different types of leadership, and I just always love that dynamic, right? But could you imagine how successful a football team would be if their head coach walks into a press conference, and think of Bill Belichick doing this, and said, we lost today, but it wasn't my fault. I had a great game plan. We studied for hours. We had the best game plan. The players didn't execute it. That's why we lost. That team goes 0-16.
Yeah, because he throws them all under the bus.
But the deep state and everybody's against me. It's like, and he didn't inherit the climate is not his fault. Like, he did not inherit this climate, but things haven't gotten better under his watch. I don't think. I mean, I think we're more divided today as a country than we were 4 years. And again, it's not all his fault, but I think what's he doing to make it better?
Well, leaders are defined by how they deal with tragedy.
Yeah.
And how they deal with adverse conditions.
Yeah.
We can all prosper in a great economy.
Was it the
no
Spock?
Tragedy.
What I gotta say? Live long and prosper.
Live long and prosper. Yes, thank you, Dr. Spock.
It's one of the few tricks I can do.
Yes, you can. By the way, Spock was a Boston Latin grad.
Yes, he was. Yes.
Went to high school with the late great Mayor Steve Meterparel at Boston Latin.
It's funny. As soon as you said that, I said, I wonder if he was a classmate of your dad's.
He was.
Wow.
He was, and I'd always.
Did your dad ever get to be an extra? Did he get to be an extra on Star Trek?
I kept telling him, Dad, can I just go meet William Shatner?
Yeah.
That's all I want to do. Like, he's like, someday we'll go to L.A. and we'll connect with him. Never happened.
Come on, Dad.
It was. It was that and this guy Barry Newman, who was a character actor who we went to Dartmouth with.
Barry Newman, okay.
He's been in a bunch of stuff.
Right.
Bullet, old 60s, 70s was like L.A. Law a bunch of times.
Not to be confused with Barry Nolan.
Not Barry Nolan.
Yeah.
But Barry Newman, those are two guys in Hollywood that he always had some connection with. But the best was Barry Newman. Remember Entertainment Tonight? Used to show Happy Birthday to Happy Birthday to Connie Selica, who's 65 today.
Yeah.
And Barry Newman's birthday every year. Barry Newman, 75. And my dad's like, wait a minute. If Barry Newman's 75, then he was 18 in kindergarten. So,
oh, man.
That was classic.
Yeah.
I shaved 10 years off every year.
Well, I mean, that was he went by his baseball years. He was 30, but in baseball years he was 20.
He's Dominican.
Yeah.
It's the Dominican age.
Right.
It's the Danny Almonte age.
Yeah, Danny Almonte age.
Yeah. We had fun with that when I was in Charlotte when Danny Almonte was pitching in the World Series.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I do remember that.
World Series?
Yeah. I think I've told you this. My brother was in the first ever 13-year-old World Series. And I don't remember there was anybody famous that played in that. It was 1983, but the team that won it was from Miami. And like 3 or 4 years later, there was a big story in the paper because they they had to relinquish the title because there were like 2 kids that were like 15 on that team.
Yeah, I wish we had some of those kids in Weston.
Yeah.
To no avail.
Yeah.
Well, Mikey, we've covered the gamut today.
We have. We've done 36 minutes on nothing.
Yeah, well, that's Seinfeld made $1 billion.
I know, he made a lot of money. We're not making a dime off of this yet.
So we're good, but hopefully we're entertaining
Yeah.
you. We hope everybody's safe and healthy and continue to hang in there like the rest of us.
Yeah.
But we will be back again tomorrow on Life Without Sports. He's Pacheco. I'm Meterparel. Special thanks to our producers. You know who you are.
All you get is credit.
Mikey, enjoy that nice weather in Charlotte. We're getting a typhoon here in Boston. So
Indeed. It's back to the yard to clean up all the sticks and leaves that branches that fell down. So.
Well, work on that backswing too.
Right. Sounds good. We'll see you tomorrow.
See you tomorrow.